It's Kathryn Whitaker. Welcome back to Lent at Lunch. Today, Rachel Bulman and I are going to visit about holy marriage, parenting, and what that all looks like. She has a show on YouTube called Meet the Bulmans, so I have no doubt that you've seen that. And if you hadn't, whenever we get finished here, you should absolutely go on YouTube and find it. It's really, really a great glimpse into what it is like to parent many children. They have six. But even if you have one child, I think that what they share there is solid gold. And it's also a great example of marriage as a partnership. And so Rachel and I are going to dive into that today. So here's Rachel. It always takes it a second. Hey, there she is.
Hey, how's it going?
I was just bragging about you, that's all.
All right, well, I'm just kidding. I wish we were standing in line at Disney World, but
I actually mentioned that today, that's actually how we really met. It's a true story. And so you know that you're going to be fast friends when you can ride Slinky Dog Dash. And
yes.
Oh, that was a good day. That was a good day. Well, I was bragging about you because I was telling everyone about your YouTube show, Meet the Bulmans, but also just how I love who you are as a human being. So I know that I know who you are, but for those that are joining either from my group that don't know who you are or people that are just joining from someplace else, what would you tell them about Rachel?
Oh gosh, so very first and foremost, I'm a daughter. So that's where I think everything comes from, is just from being a daughter. And then I'm a wife and I'm a mother. And so I'm a mother of seven. We have one child in heaven, and the rest are somewhere in this house somewhere. I tried to beckon them to come and say hello, and they said no. So they said, we're not doing that, Mom. And the other two are asleep. The youngest are asleep. So like right before, it was like they knew Mom needs us to go take a nap. So they actually just went down for a nap. But
And
that's
how old are
what
the
I
twins
am
now?
The twins are now almost 9 months old.
Wow.
Yeah,
All right.
Benedict this morning pulled up on the couch, and so I saw my life like flash before my eyes. I was like, oh, okay.
There it goes.
Yeah, there it
Life
goes.
as we knew it.
Yes.
Well, I love obviously you have the new show, but this was pre all of that. I think that you and Jason, who is also in diaconate formation, we're going to talk about that, do a really great job of showing, I think, on social media, but most importantly in real life, what it means to have marriage as a partnership, and then how that translates into being parents to children who you want to grow in faith and holiness, but also in compassion and mercy. And so maybe let's just talk, Rachel, about, because I think it's a really great story, of how you and Jason met, and then how you decided to maybe enter into family life. So tell us how you met, and then when you started discerning your family, what did that look like?
Sure. So we met in a very smoky bar. Just so everyone knows, it's very smoky. I always say that the smoke cleared, and I realized that he was still cute. So I was like, oh, I'm going to keep him. But we met there. I was working in the restaurant industry. He was home for a very brief time before he went off to PA school to become a physician assistant. And we just happened to both be in the same place. And he looks like Keanu Reeves. And so that was really all I needed. I'm just kidding. It sounds very superficial. But when we started talking, there was definitely something more to him. And I remember sitting there in one of our late night talks, and I was like, wow, I think I'm going to keep this guy around for a really long time. And so then once we got married, I remember learning about the Catholic belief and our stance on contraception. And so my family was very much like, what? You guys you don't do contraception? What's that mean? That can't mean what you're saying. That's got to mean something else. And when we talked about it, I was all in. I was a convert to the faith. I had become Catholic the year before we got married. And so I would just trust the church and trust in what the Lord had for me, that he wanted me to be whole and complete and completely open. And just looking at our family life, we both had things that we had been a part of growing up, our own families. And, I think that when we're growing up, you see things and you're like, either, oh, I want to do that, or you do the other thing where you're like, no, I don't want to do that at all. And so we both pick picked and chose and the things that we really wanted to have in our own families, the things that we wanted to stay away from, the things we wanted to do better at. But most of all, in all of it, we just wanted our kids to know that they were loved by God. Mm. And so even when they were very, very young, that was it's something that we used to say to them all the time, you're mine, but you're also not mine. Like, you have been entrusted to me, and I am your caretaker here on earth just to give you back to God. And so I would tell the kids all the time, I'm your earthly mom, but you have a heavenly mom. You have a heavenly father. You have an earthly father. And everything that we do is hopefully going to be a reflection of that, be a reflection of the love of the Father. And when we're not doing that, we're not reflecting the love of the Father well. And I don't know, I've had to apologize a lot of the times when I'm not reflecting that love well. And they're always very gracious with me. So thank God.
Well, I'm wondering if you can be my mom. You seem like you're doing it really well. Yeah, I think it's important too to speak into this for just a moment, because I know that particularly in primarily Catholic circles, that people look at your level of faith as to how many diapers you change in the pew, as to how many kids you have sitting in that pew. And I know that there are some women who, for many reasons, do not have children. And so right. I think it's important to speak into the fact that you can still be a faithful, wonderful Catholic family and not have a bazillion children. You
right.
can be good stewards, and you've spoken to this, be good stewards of the gift that God has given you, however many diapers that may include, and what that looks like in your day-to-day life. So Rachel, I'm curious. Okay, so I know that you guys just started this YouTube channel, or this YouTube show on Word on Fire Ministries channel called Meet the Bulmans. So not many people would be like, so yes, I will allow a camera crew to come into my home and record the good, bad, and the ugly. So maybe walk us through how you guys discerned that choice prayerfully,
sure.
and then what some of the fruits have been of you of having of having that camera crew walk into your front door.
Sure. Jason and I have always been very adamant with the kids to let them know that everything that we have is only ours because we have to give it away. Like, even the love that we have for one another is something that we are meant to give away. It's supposed to be so much that we're just overflowing with it to give to the world. And so they've seen people come into our home. In fact, when the pandemic hit and we were all in isolation, that was one of the very first things that they noticed. They said, why don't we have any friends anymore? Because there used to always be people at the house. And I was like, oh, buddy, we're just going through some things in the world, and one day they'll all come back. And so slowly there are starting to be more people coming over, and they're so excited. But when we got the call from Word on Fire and they were asking us, what was so funny was that it was Father Steve Grinnell, and he called me, he's like, I've been meaning to talk to you about something. He said, but the thing is that before I got to talk to you, you announced that you were having twins. He's like, then I was like, I can't ask her now. And so then he's like, but then I kept praying about it. And I was like, oh, you should ask her and let her tell you if she doesn't think it's a good idea. And so Jason and I both were on the call, and we hung up, we both kind of looked at each other because we were going to take the weekend to pray about it and figure out what we were doing. And we both just kind of looked at each other and said, our family can be a gift for the world. And it was like this manifestation of what we've always prayed for ourselves, that we would in some way be able to give something more to the world than what I think we had growing up and what we saw in the world. And so we really wanted to do that. Now, right after that, no one knew what we were walking into. And I don't even think our producers at Word on Fire knew exactly how this was going to work out, because it was the first time that they'd kind of entered into this realm as well. So they said, we're going to start sending you stuff like camera equipment. And I would come home and there was like boxes on the front porch. And the poor mailman, he goes, this is like for the twins, right? Like all this stuff is for the babies. I said, yeah, totally for the babies. Because otherwise you're going to think I'm nuts. It's all for the babies. And so then they sent out producers and they said, listen, this is the way it's all going to work out. We're going to shoot this first episode with you. But then after that, we're really kind of letting you figure out what the Lord's calling you to tell to the world about your family. So it's not as intrusive as it sounds, like people follow me around everywhere, because I think we probably would have said no to that.
Yeah.
But they said, we want people to see as much as you're willing to let them see. And so I know that some of the feedback has been, we really want to see the kids more, but our camera is like it was just yesterday, but I just took it down, like stationed to the ground, and was in this room where we film. And the other things, I always tell people that and have messaged me and been like, why don't we see more of the kids or more interaction with the kids? And I said, well, then you have to follow me on Instagram. There's a lot of stuff about the kids on Instagram.
Yes.
But it's just being able to see two people. There was one episode that I was dying laughing at, because the beginning, we both talk about how tired we are. And somebody messaged me and said, your laugh sounds a little maniacal. that opening scene, I was like, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I was probably a little bit maniacal that morning. I don't think I'd slept in a few days. So yeah, it's kind of intrusive, not as intrusive.
I do think but I think what you're sharing is that you went into that with intentional prayer. And while not everybody is going to have word on fire, call them and be like, hey, can we come fill your family? I think the lesson there is that whenever God invites you to share whatever gift it is that your family has with the world, that it should be approached with prayerful discernment, but also intentionality. Like, how do we take this gift and share it with the world? And what does that look like? And it looks different for every family. I know that you guys speak about this on the show, and I know that you have a book coming out this fall. And I think that it's a really important topic, Rachel, because I'm just sort of in, what am I in? I guess I'm in Numbers in Bible in a Year. I decided to start doing that this year, and I've really enjoyed. I knew the Bible as a Protestant, as I know you were as well. And so it feels and looks different as an adult, as I'm re-listening to some scriptures that I haven't read in a long time. I mean, obviously some I have, but some I'm like, oh, that hits different. So, as you start into Genesis, you start to hear about how God created man, and then how woman came along, and what that looks like, or what his plan was. And I think that there's some discussion in the current world of what a partnership in a marriage really looks like. Like, what's the hierarchy of a marriage, or what's the partnership of a marriage? And I know that your book is going to speak a lot to the partnership. And as I think your life on social media, your show on YouTube, I think speaks to that partnership. But maybe can you share a little bit of, what does that hierarchy look like in your house? And how do you and Jason share responsibilities as a husband and a wife, but also as parents?
Yeah, one of the things, a couple of really quick anecdotal things, is that, Jason's in formation for the permanent diaconate. He's going to become a deacon in June 11th. So if you guys want to pray with him or show up at
that's
the
my birthday,
Orlando.
So I'll definitely pray for him.
Oh, look.
Yeah,
we'll
that's
be
a great day.
So before we said yes to the formation process, we had some young adults over, and someone had turned to him and said, you would make a great deacon. And he was kind of like, okay, and they talked about it for a second. Well, then we went to bed that night, and he said, so-and-so said, do you think that's true? And I said, of course that's true. You'd be a great deacon. And afterwards, when we talked about it, he said, it never was real until you said it. Oh. And he said, when she said it, when someone else said it, it was like maybe an idea. He goes, but when you said it, it became a possibility. It wasn't an idea anymore. It was something that could become real. So that's one anecdote. The other anecdote is this. The other day, Jason works, he sees a ton of patients a day. Probably anywhere between 30 to 50 patients a day. So it's very stressful. And when he comes home, he immediately is dad. I think that we don't give our dads enough credit, because they do go off. They're the CEO, or the guy that's taking care of patients, or all of these things in the world. Now he's also going to be a minister on the altar. And then when he comes into this home, he doesn't get like a moment of reprieve. Maybe he gets it in between leaving his office and coming home. But as soon as he walks in that door, that hat is dad. That hat is the guy that has to practice all the sports, and the guy that has to sit down and help with homework or help with the bath. He immediately becomes dad. And so the other day he came home. It was a very stressful day, and he's kind of exhausted, and a little bit later that night, he said, honey, I'm sorry, I was so tired earlier. He's like, I was just not with it. I was just so tired. And I said, a lot of people say, if mama's not happy, nobody's happy. And I said, but as the head of our household, if you're not with us, no one is with us. And I said, and it's difficult for me to also feel that. And he said, I know. He's like, I'm slowly realizing that. And I think that we we've kind of put this onus on the woman to be the one that's the head of the household. We care for the household, but we're not the head of the household in the way that the man is also the head of the household. It's a shared responsibility, but if any one of us is off, it's felt. It's a ripple throughout the home. And I don't think we realize that even our husbands, the man of the house, have a stronghold on how we all feel in the house. It's not just if mama's only happy. Daddy better be happy too. We all better be out here trying to live with some joy, or everyone realizes that something is off. The other thing is that because of the receptivity of the wife, this is going to go really deep. Sorry, everybody that's just
I
not
love
here
it.
much.
I love it. This is
Because
good stuff,
of the receptivity of the wife, we have the ability to take something in and then it becomes real. You see that actually in the Blessed Virgin Mary. She takes into herself faith that then becomes the word, and it becomes manifested and incarnated for the entire world. So through her womb and her receptivity to the will of God, a person enters into the world that becomes the Messiah, the salvation for all of the world. It's amazing. And if you take that reality and the call that's on every woman, we have the ability to take in within ourselves and create life. That's not something that's only seen in the womb and in the child. It's something that's seen when you speak truth over your neighbor. It's something that's also seen when we speak death to one another. We have the ability as women, a very special ability, to take within ourselves that the things in the world and either create something joyful or create something that kills the spirits of other people. And one of my sons earlier this week, he came to me and he said, so-and-so at school was really kind of in a bad mood today. He's got tears in his eyes. And I said, buddy, I said, I'm really sorry that you had to deal with that. I said, what do we do when we have someone else's pain given to us? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, you take that pain and you give it to God, and God can transform that pain into joy. And I said, your friend did not take that pain and give it to God. And instead, what wasn't transformed was transferred to you. He gave you pain that he was carrying. And I said, so you can't let that pain change the rest of your day. It can't become pain that you then try to give to your brothers and sisters or even give to mommy. You transform that now, and then we give each other life. We give each other joy. And so that's such a great, pain that is not transformed is transferred. And just shout it from the rooftops, because you see that so much in the family. I'm sure you and Mr. Whitaker know, if one of you is in an off mood, and me and Mr. Bulman know the same thing, somebody walk in here with a little bit of pain that you want to transfer, it transfers to every single member of the family. And I'll tell them all the time, I'm like, I was in a great mood, and then you walked in here with all that bad funk, and now we all got it. So you gotta
and then everybody's apologizing.
Transformed. Exactly. And so there's so much to be said.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing to think about. There is a lot of pain that's being, I think, transferred into our homes, either by our own family members or the outside world. And so how do we transform that? I mean, I think the world feels heavy. I think it always has been heavy. I think we just know about it faster because of the internet and social media. So therefore we have to put in good boundaries to know, like, to filter that. And I think that's part of our responsibility as women of the household, but also of men of the household, that it's a partnership to say, like, what can we bring in, and then what do we need to send back out? And what do we need to put up walls and say that can't come in our house, because this is a sacred space. But speaking of discussions, you mentioned that. How do you, I'm always curious to ask couples, how do you fight fair in your house? How do you resolve disagreement?
You must hear my heart, because I was just thinking to myself, I hope that I get to say this. So now I get to say it. I think that society as a whole tries to tell you that you don't ask for help and you don't have time to help anyone else. That's just bottom line. That feels like a lot of people just walk around with blinders. I'm taking care of myself, got here on my own, don't need to help anybody else. I'm doing this for me. And so the way that we fight fair is to constantly look to the cross to understand what the posture of love is. And so I always tell people that you think that the posture of love is something where you're like showering gifts on one another, or you're doing all of these things. The posture of love is dying. I mean, the posture of love is arms open, willing to die for the other. and willing to take on all of that the other person has. And so with us, there's just this constant need to look at each other and go, how can I help you? And then being willing to do whatever that is that you need them to do, whether it's something simple like, really need you to feed the dog this morning, I'm in a really big rush, or if it's something as deep as, today was really tough, I need you to just hold me and let me cry. And then being able to just meet each other there. But I think that men and women love to give into the temptation to think, I don't need to ask for help. Or we even try to twist it into something that's noble. If I ask for help, then they're going to need to help me. And then I'm somehow taking away from them. Like, I'm not letting them not have to deal with my mess. Well, that's a part of the nuptial reality of the sacrament of marriage, is to be able to be so one with one another that you're even one with the other person's wounds. You're not expecting them to heal you. You both turn to Christ for healing. That's where you're supposed to go to be fulfilled. But you have to become so one with one another that when their wounds are open, you're not revolted by them, but that you long to help them find healing. And that can't happen if you're not able to say, I'm willing to help you. Will you help me?
So for the people that are watching this, they're like, that's really great, Kathryn and Rachel. I'm really glad that you have husbands who you love and who things seem to be working out really well for you. Well, I mean, I do have something to say to that, but I'll let you speak to this first. How do you start to heal a marriage that is broken or that is hemorrhaging, and that needs more Jesus than what you think that you have to give? What would be your suggestions or encouragement to those men and women who are watching this, who feel like marriage just feels heavy and hard and not nearly as great as everybody else's?
So first, I would go to your spouse and see if they're open to you guys getting some help together. Because sometimes if you're drowning, you can't turn to the other person that's drowning and go, hey, like, save me. We're both drowning. So it's definitely more sensible to get help from someone that can professionally help in those situations. It's not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be seen as a strength, that you're ready to say, okay, let's do this. I want to help this. The other thing that you need to do, and it's something that's honestly every spouse, whether your marriage is beautiful and amazing, or it's a struggle, or you think it's about to end today, what's being said to you right now? Like, what needs to be healed within you? Like, what are the wounds that you're trying to ignore, the wounds that you thought were going to be healed by getting married, the wounds that keep you up at night, the things that you somehow brought along from your parents or your friends, or other things that you have allowed to just fester and take control. And heal those things. Allow God to come into those situations and do what he does best. That does not happen unless you let him. And I think that in situations, hi, Abigail, that in a lot of situations, I know, in a lot of situations, a lot of people think that the biggest strength is like, oh, well, if I love well, the thing that allows me to love well is allowing myself to be loved. And if I'm not allowing myself to be loved, you can't do anything else. So you have to let yourself be loved. That's the biggest strength that you can have. And I think a lot of times two people will come into a marriage and just not allow that to happen. You don't want anybody to love you because someone has told you along the way that you were unlovable. It's not true.
No, well, and I mean, I think that Scott and I, many years ago, when Luke was in the NICU, he's our fifth kid, we went to marriage counseling, and it was the single best thing that we ever did for our marriage. We were certainly, it was the single best thing we did. We were developing habits that would not be sustainable, and our marriage would not have flourished and prospered because of it. So I know that there are women who are watching this who are in difficult places or in difficult spaces, and I think that your advice is a good one. I would also add, go talk to your pastor. This is what, while they're not a counselor, and I wouldn't put them in that role, professional help, and I think that you and I are probably on the same page of this, is like a certified marriage therapist or a counselor. But I do think that there's some wisdom in inviting your priest into a spiritual holy place with you and saying, like, hey, my spouse and I are either not on the same page spiritually or emotionally or whatever. how can you help us from a spiritual standpoint? So I think it's sort of the trifecta of the two of you, this therapist and a holy priest that can, and certainly being surrounded by other couples that maybe have been through something similar, something hard, and then they can
Right.
also be some encouragement to you. Oh my gosh, Rachel, I could ask you a billion questions, and I'm looking at the I'm looking at the time.
I
And
know. Somebody stop the time. Just kidding.
somebody just do that. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll have to do this. We'll have to do this again. So maybe tell people where they can find your show on YouTube, and then tell us about your book, and then where we can find you on social media. I mean, obviously here, but if there's anywhere else that they can go.
Sure. So my handle is the same on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. So it's very simple, Rachel Bulman. If you go to YouTube and look up Meet the Bulmans, you guys are so great because so many people have watched it that now you'll be able to just click on it. So you just click on Meet the Bulmans, hang out with us. And then the book is called Becoming Wife. And because of the pandemic and paper shortages, it's coming out in the spring of next year, not the fall
Okay.
now.
Well, good.
So it'll be in the
Well, now
spring.
we'll just have to talk about all this
Yeah, we'll
again.
just have to
That's
talk about
okay.
it more. So it's so exciting. And I really hope that you guys will come and hang out with me in all of these spaces and hopefully pick up that book when it comes out.
So, Rachel, what's one way that people that are watching this live and people that watch this later, what's one way that we can pray for you during Lent?
Oh man. Pray that I will allow myself to be loved in everything that I do, please.
Absolutely. I will add that to my list. Well, Rachel, you know that I'll just have to come to Disney and we'll have to get on another roller coaster.
Yes, please.
So come do that again. Hey, thank you for the gift of your time today, and tell the twins thanks for sleeping. We had a great discussion. I could ask you a billion more questions, but people will probably have finished their salads by now. So I got to let them go.
It's true.
But thank you for the gift of who you are.
Thank you so much.
All right.
You too, Kathryn.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Rachel.
You too.